But Ed, thank you for joining us. We're actually in the middle of talking about the world record. And actually where we ended up was Angelo was talking about the uniqueness of that day, and that really every day going into any event, your emotions are going to be very unique to that day. He was talking about, maybe a little more sweaty. He was actually said he was breathing a little heavy. Maybe we got to do some more miles on the treadmill, Angelo. I'm unsure. But but either way, I think that's important for every athlete to know that you're not going to be able to control your state that day. It's just accepting the state that you're in and going about it anyways and doing it anyways and knowing that you're going to set a world record anyways. But backtracking now that Ed is here, and this is good for both of y'all, as we really were trying to walk through what the day was like. Angelo really started at the night before, really what was happening the night before with him. What were you doing the night before? Because your role in this was loaded, right? As Angela even commented on during, he's just stepping out there and setting the world record with you, but you have a major role behind the scenes with organizing this with Save the Children. So what was your plate loaded with the night before?
Yeah, the previous 2 nights I didn't get much sleep, to be honest, which isn't good for performance preparation.
Definitely not.
I think it was about 8 hours combined over the 2 nights before, which is not advisable. But
and in 2021, the 2021 record, he actually slept at the club. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, Angelo. Today is the big day that we get to say a Guinness World Record has been officially set.
Well, I would say unofficially, but yes.
Well, unofficially because we don't have the approval of the exact count yet.
Yes.
However, we do know it has been set to some extent. We just don't know the exact number.
Yes, unless the numbers are 532 off, which I highly doubt.
Yeah, I highly doubt. But so we've gone through preparation process for a lot of things. We've talked about having a major event and talked about a lot of tactics around it. And I think what is of major interest now that this record has been set is what did that day look like? Going into it, what did you do going in? And then how did you actually interact with the event itself? Because obviously I was there, right? Anybody that wants to go off watch the live stream, I commentated it. It was my first commentating gig. I actually enjoyed it thoroughly. But there was some things that Angelo adjusted to on the fly. And me speaking with him about a lot of mental skills and tactics, I was caught off guard. I was like, holy shit, this guy's about to go set a world record and he's not going to even practice right now? Like, are you kidding me? So with that being said, start with us. Besides me congratulating you, you could tell I'm fired up just from being at the event still.
Yeah.
Tell us how that day. You're welcome. Tell us how that day started.
Yeah.
What did it look like?
And it's interesting because euphoric, you did a great job commentating. I see a future for you in sports commentating, maybe pickleball, but that was fun. And if you go to rally4charity.org/watch, you can watch the live stream. And actually I counted last night the counts with the video, just to, we're sending in all the materials. They have to verify it. So it's still unofficial, but it's going to be a record, which is wonderful, but it's more what the record represents. So answering your question as far as what that day looked like, I would say it more what the day felt like.
Okay.
And it's one of those things I had said prior, when anyone asked me, I was peacefully excited. And then the night before, so let's just track back to the day before, night before, you know, I was feeling emotional because and full of gratitude because I knew we were going to set the record. And when you know you're going to do something special, you know, the emotions come out as if you've already done it. And I just can't help that. And
What made you know that night before? What made you wholeheartedly know we are going to do this tomorrow?
I went to confession in church. No. Uh, uh,
Absolved all my sins beforehand. I felt like
oh
a free
yeah,
man.
yeah. You know, I was an apostle the night before. No, so you know, we talked about having the faith. Having faith, I would define that as having the future belief that something that has never been done before or tried before will happen with you. That is faith. So I had faith that it would happen, but there's two types of knowing, right? There's the feeling of knowing, which is from your heart, and there's the logic of knowing, which is from your head. So I had the feeling of knowing that we were going to break the record, but not the logic of knowing. I think when you have the logic of knowing you did it, that's future thinking and that's cockiness. But confidence is that internal, you don't have to say it. You know, I would say it to people that are really close to me, like you
Mm.
know, I would say it I say it on the podcast because I'm hoping to document the steps up to it. So if others are trying to accomplish something in their own sport or in life, that they can hopefully be inspired and learn from what we're talking about. But the knowing for me was knowing in my heart, and that's why, you know, it was touching my emotions, the feelings of it. But the logic of it was that it was not gonna happen or might not happen for a lot of reasons. So you know, and we'll get into the day of as well. But you know, I was using a paddle I never used before. This one, and you know, it's kind of cool that the Engage. Shout out to them. They were generous to create 3 Save the Children Rossetti Brothers pickleball branded paddles so we
Yeah,
can
they're really
raise
cool.
money.
Really
Yeah,
cool.
and it's really cool. Uh, and you know, half the proceeds will go to Save the Children. And so, anyways, we had gotten those paddles in. So again, it's about what's the purpose. The purpose is to raise money and awareness for a good cause, Save the Children. So we were committed to using these Save the Children paddles, and they came in the night before, the day before. So
Wow.
I was able to have one practice with the paddle the day before. So I had to put lead tape on it, which I did. And that the decision there was, you don't want it so heavy that you have fatigue, but you don't want it too light that you have to do too much to make a volley. The sweet spot matters more with a lighter paddle. The weight on the edges, as you know, expands the sweet spot. So there's that. Then the ball. The ball was a game day decision. We used the Franklin X40. This is the actual can. This can was
You gonna
given to
tell them
us
how
by,
old that ball is?
yeah, October 10th of 2021 was when we received the balls the morning of from Franklin. They were generous enough to donate the balls for our first world record, the 16,046 rally with a bounce. And so what we did was I came up with the idea, wouldn't it be cool you have 2 world records in one can. And so, you know, the middle one is a brand new one, and then the top one is the volley one, and the bottom one is the one that bounced, which is more worn out. And so that was a game day decision. I'm used to playing with the Franklin X40, but we did have engaged neon balls that I was practicing with. They were nice enough to send us some, but that one was, you know, hey, that would be an interesting story to use the same ball. And I don't know if the ball, I'm interested to ask Franklin, is the ball manufactured in 2021 the same exact ball as the one in 2024? I'd be interested to know. But I knew that it's not like a tennis ball where the tennis ball dies over time. It's plastic, so it's not going to warp. But yes,
I'd be worried about cracking, right? Because it's been sitting for that long. That's why when you told me it was the same ball out of the same can, I was like, you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy for that. We just talked about how in practice you guys cracked a ball. Then you pull a ball out from 2021 and have the hope that it's not going to crack. And granted, I don't think it mattered to you, right? If it cracked or didn't, if it cracked or didn't, you were setting that world record.
One way or another. We rehearsed with that cracked ball 2 days prior, and it must have had a hairline crack in it that I didn't notice, in fairness to the ball. But I noticed that I happened to be volleying it on the same hole, which it ended up splintering into 4 cracks on the same hole. And then the ball, it hit the hole. It didn't go anywhere. So we were able to do, I think, between 100 and 200 volleys with a severely cracked ball. So I knew if the ball cracked, we had already rehearsed that we could get a couple hundred in there. And then if it was going to go beyond that, I would have had to lob every ball, because at least if you're lobbing it, you're under the ball more. But the problem is the mechanics and the trajectory of a lob type volley was not going to be conducive to what we had practiced or know. And also, I want to become a better pickleball player, not a worse one. So to set up to lob up my dink or volley was not something that I really wanted to do. But you know, there was so many things. I would say 100 different things going on. And what is fascinating to me is that I was bothered by none of them. And as you know, I said, people have been waiting over an hour. Let's get this show underway when my brother asked to practice.
Yeah.
And our live stream was delayed about an hour. So that was why I was ready to start right at noon. I didn't care. I'm in the ever ready, kind of like the battery, ever ready position of I'll at a moment's notice can set a world record. At a moment's notice, I could do a keynote about mental skills, whatever. That confidence to be ready, to be perfect when nothing is perfect. I would say the difference between perfection and excellence, and perfection is you're trying to be perfect with non-perfect circumstances, and excellence is accepting those circumstances that are not perfect and still being able to accomplish your dream or goal. And for me, it was okay. Everything is okay. Everything is acceptable. There was a news reporter there, and we were delayed, right? So now we're trying to repair the live stream, and then there's a news reporter. So I said we would prefer to do the interview after, because we're just about to go on the court right now. And she's like, no, I would prefer it now. So it's like,
she said that to you? Because I saw you guys do the interview. She said that to you? Oh my God.
Yeah. And I know that. I know I love media. Yeah. Hey, I love media.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as bad publicity. But I'm in the mindset, because I was already in the mindset that we were going to begin without.
So did that start So I know you've been working, obviously, been preparing for a while for this, right? We've been talking about it every
Yeah.
single week. Did
Yeah.
that mindset, though, really you start to dial in the night before? Is that really where you started?
I started to dial in when I clicked submit on the Guinness World Record application
Okay.
earlier in the year. So the mental preparation was there, and I was serious when. Remember, we talked to Zane Navratil and Thomas Shields,
Yeah.
and I had said we're doing our mental prep, and they said, "Well, you better go out there and practice," And don't get me wrong, as we got closer, we practiced almost every day at about 6 a.m. So I didn't take it lightly, but I also know what it takes, and for me, I had told one of the writers who wrote a really nice story, Abby, the Connecticut Insider. She, I told her there was two things I knew for sure: that I love my mom, and we would set this record. And so for me, it was inevitable that it was going to happen, and it wasn't an if it was going to happen. That's why I could confidently say to Thomas and Zane, we are going to set this record, even if we don't have a physical practice, or even if life happens and you have a wife and kids, it's okay. And, and Andy, you want to say hi? No, that's my son. My 13-year-old son is curious as to what I'm doing. He was
He was
there.
there as well. You had the whole
Yeah,
family
he was
there.
there with my dad and my wife. My daughter Maddie, shout out to Maddie. She's trying out for the USJ tennis team, and she's an incoming freshman. So she couldn't be there, but I know she FaceTimed with my wife, and she knew right away that we had set the record because of the live stream.
Mm.
Anyways, you say about the mindset. So I had already prepared, kind of like the Elvis principle I developed in 2015 for that world record when we did the tennis volley, 30,576 shots. I said, there's going to be moments when a huge distraction is going to happen, and you say, oh, that's nice, there's Elvis, stay focused. And so how I used that was, and sometimes my brother and I, in our practices, we say the word Elvis, and that means there's a distraction coming up that I see that you don't, so just be ready for it. We didn't have to say those words during the actual world record, but we definitely rehearsed that. And so going back to the reporter, it's all about raising money and awareness for Save the Children. So yeah, whatever it takes. I had told you last time, I don't know if I told you on the podcast, but that at 5 a.m. in the morning, I got a call at 4 a.m. At 5 a.m., they were going to do an interview with me. 2015, the morning of the record, we were supposed to start the record at about 8 or 9 a.m. So I drove to the club 3 or 4 hours early to be there for a 5 a.m. interview, only to be canceled on because it was a major accident in Southern Connecticut. So they're like, sorry, we have to bump you. But again, it's not about me. It's not about my ego of setting a world record. It's about do whatever you can to raise money for Save the Children. That is the mission. And therefore, these other things are insignificant and irrelevant. They don't matter. If we were to do this with no one knowing about it, that would matter, because then we can't raise money for the charity. So, that was really important to me. So I noticed, I drew a line. I said, just please don't go beyond this line, because I'm going to see you in my right periphery. Well, reporters, I can't falter. She got some great video and photos, but right in my line of sight. So for the first 20 minutes, if you notice, it was a little bit bumpy. We had a lot of saves, and there's two reasons for that. Well, I would say three. One, no practice with that ball. So the ball is new, the paddle is new. But then the second is I could see someone in my periphery. And the third is you have emotions and adrenaline that are unique to that day and moment that you can't rehearse. And so actually I was breathing heavier the first half hour at the actual world record than I was in every single practice prior to, for some reason. So I just was aware of it. Okay, why am I breathing so heavy? And then it's, why am I sweating so much? It's supposed to be air conditioned. It was air conditioned. It was beautiful at Pickleball America there. But, you start to think about things like, do I wipe my sweat or not? And if I do, how quickly and how long? And so I saw my brother doing this quite a bit, and I only did that once. There was sweat coming down my nose, and I tried to block it out. But then once you use too much energy, mental energy, to block out something, you have to then at that point accept it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to wipe my sweat once. And I did. And I only wiped it once in the 2 hours. So it's things like that are real factors involved. But the third point I wanted to make there was that it takes about 20 minutes to a half hour to find that rhythm of the day. I would say the quickest we've ever done it is probably 10 or 15 minutes. This one, for the duration of the record took 2 hours. This was 1/8 of the record. The first 1/8 of the record, we were out of balance, and there were a lot of saves. And even in talking to Jared, who was one of the official counters with Steve, he had said he was shocked at how many saves and close misses there were, especially the first hour, because he counted the first hour. And yes, I was surprised but ready. And there's a difference. I was surprised but ready. I wasn't, not ready. And then the same thing, my brother said that there was a news reporter that had come from overseas. They covered the story, and they also got an interview in before we started. And he was in my brother's vision because he was standing behind me in the area that you're not supposed to stand in, that was cordoned off. So that was another distraction or Elvis principle focus for him. So Dubai, yeah, that person. But hey, if you're going to come all the way from Dubai to cover our event for Save the Children, then my thing is stand wherever you want. I don't care if you stand on the court right next to me. I really don't. It's the record is still going to happen. It's just more difficult, but it's still going to happen.
I think a key point that you had in there that I want to emphasize is that you described your emotions as unique to that day. And I think that's important to note because even like myself, I think a lot of athletes, whoa!
Hey guys.
We got a surprise guest.
Oh, yeah. Hey.
Hey, welcome.
Hey,
welcome.
How are you?
Thank you for joining us. We are in the middle. Did you tell him to join us? Or did he just pop on?
I didn't know what his schedule was, but I did send him the link on the
chat. Yes, full disclosure, this wasn't twin telepathy this time.
That would have been absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
On the bottom of my screen, I saw this thing pop up. I'm like, who the hell is joining our podcast right now? But Ed, thank you for joining us. We're actually in the middle of talking about the world record. And actually where we ended up was Angelo was talking about the uniqueness of that day, and that really every day going into any event, your emotions are going to be very unique to that day. He was talking about, maybe a little more sweaty. He was actually said he was breathing a little heavy. Maybe we got to do some more miles on the treadmill, Angelo. I'm unsure. But either way, I think that's important for every athlete to know that you're not going to be able to control your state that day. It's just accepting the state that you're in and going about it anyways and doing it anyways and knowing that you're going to set a world record anyways. But backtracking now that Ed is here, and this is good for both y'all, as we really were trying to walk through what the day was like. Angelo really started at the night before, really what was happening the night before with him. What were you doing the night before? Because your role in this was loaded, right? As Angela even commented on during, he's just stepping out there and setting the world record with you, but you have a major role behind the scenes with organizing this with Save the Children. So what
Yeah.
was your plate loaded with the night before?
Yeah, the previous 2 nights, I didn't get much sleep, to be honest, which isn't good for performance preparation.
Definitely
Um,
not.
I think it was about 8 hours combined over the 2 nights before, which is, not advisable. But
Yeah.
And in
here's
2021, the 2021 record, he actually slept at the club. So
That's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't do an all-nighter, but I babysitted the live stream technology in 2021. Yeah, and so that was a little sleep deprivation practice. But I think this time around, Alec, it was I tried to turn a negative into a positive. So first of all, in 2021, we were emerging from the COVID pandemic, so it was difficult to have a complete, fully staffed volunteer crew. This time, we had that competitive advantage, right? We had your professional commentary expertise. We had Erica from Save the Children and Lisa on the stream team doing the live stream. Even though there were some challenges in streaming all the places, it turned out to be an unbelievable quality production. And therefore some of those elements I could delegate, I could oversee, but not actually do. So that was one big difference. But my state of mind the 2 nights prior was all of the operational details. To be honest, I did not, after we had a really long, after we had a very productive practice on Friday the night before at Pickleball America, there were some key insights that impacted the performance. But once those were behind me mentally, I was only focusing on fundraising, the volunteer, what we call at University of Connecticut Athletics, UConn Athletics, the game day timeline, exactly who does what, when, and so forth. And that game day timeline, I learned that technique from UConn. They still use it to this day to do behind the scenes sort of their marketing and such. And learn more about that kind of operational planning when I was at West Point. So that helped me to prepare for the operational side. I didn't think about performance after the last practice. So for me, it was an intentional distraction. In other words, the stress I was enduring for the operational and logistical details, when I actually got to rallying, that was easier. And that was how I turned a negative into a positive. I created that, and rather than it detracting from my performance, it augmented my performance because those elemental details were more stressful than actually hitting a ball back and forth.
Would you say that was because it was a consistent reminder of why you were doing the world record in the first place? Or one of the reasons why you were doing it?
For sure. Raising funds, right? It was a charitable fundraiser for a reason. We could set a record anytime and not have a charitable component. And it did map to our why and to purpose. And then therefore all of the logistical details, the sports memorabilia silent auction, the raffle for the custom paddles, those were all monetization elements and details that were literally coming together, like having the paddle shipped next day, having the tote bags and T-shirts same day courier shipping. Those details matter. They all fell into place, and you might think it's nothing to do about your performance, but in a way, that is why we're doing the performance, in my view.
Yeah. So now moving into really the next morning, because now you wake up, as many athletes know too, you go to bed the night before, you may be thinking about a lot of stuff, but it's not the day of yet, right? The day of is always a completely different element, especially how you feel. Like you said, you woke up and you're a little bit sleep deprived. So that feeling that day is probably going to be much different than the past two. So you wake up that morning, you roll out of bed. Where do you start? Right? I'm sure you're on the phone calling everybody, trying to organize things. Angelo, I'll start with you from the other side, right? Which is, I'll say, geared mainly towards dialing yourself in, even though you've been dialing yourself in for months, but now it's the day of. Where did you start when you woke up out of bed that morning?
So I knew we had to be there at noon. I checked the traffic, and there was like accidents, and just as you know, the traffic was tough. I think the drive there took an hour and a half. So that extra half hour, I couldn't go see my mom's grave that morning because it was in the opposite direction. So rather than be regretful, I was grateful that I had an inspiration such as her. So I did own up to my promise, and this on my way home, I visited her. So for me, it was realigning with the purpose of why we're going through so much stress. And then once you get by the purpose and you're like, okay, I'm going straight to the site. Then it's all of the little things, the liquid, powder in the container. I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I have that. Why? Because I got to put that on when I arrive so I don't get sweaty palms. And then there's the Advil type, how many do I take not to upset my stomach? And then, it depends on who you ask, but there might be an accident. So you got to have a plan for that. You got to have the plan for everything. And so, but I reflected on this for athletes, and here's what I've come up with. You want to have everything perfect, but you do not need to have everything perfect. The only thing you need is a purpose. And if you have the right purpose that resonates with you for the right reasons, then everything else is a bonus. I don't care what ball. I don't care what paddle. I don't care if we have an overgrip. I don't care if I have the sweaty palm stuff. I don't care if I have Advil or not. I don't care if there's pain. It doesn't matter. I don't care if the live stream is working or not. Nothing matters. So I'm not saying not prepare, but you have to be in a state of readiness, just like a pickleball tournament or tennis tournament. They call your name an hour early. I know this has happened to you in a pro pickleball tournament, you and Jared. You got to get there early. Like, there's no not ready. I'm not ready. Yeah. No, you got to be ready. Like, don't do it if you're not ready. And so the readiness, and so it's definitely I had a checklist of, okay, over grip, the all of that. And I went through all of that, and I was happy that, that I had all of the checklist items. And the key was also having my son's iPhone. My old son, I just bought a new one for his birthday. And so that had a lot of storage. So I knew I could do about 5 hours of video. It ended up being like 3.5 hours because we had the delayed start. That was another key element, because that's the video we've sent to Guinness World Records to adjudicate and officiate the record. So that was important, and so it's probably about 100 other items, but it's that non-reliance on having those things perfect, but accepting what you have in the moment and do what you can with what you have.
And did you, through this entire morning, did you interact with Angelo while he's going through his checklist, right? And I think that is key, because it sounds like it takes the thinking out of it, right? You get to look at your list. You're saying, okay, I need to get this, this, and this done. If you don't have time for one thing, you're saying, you know what? Not perfect. Need to accept it. Not going to be able to get this done beforehand. But you have that list that at least is guiding you the morning of. Did you interact with Angelo at all the morning of? Or did you show up at Pickleball America and you're like, hey, we're about to set a world record together?
No, it's a former. We interacted, but it was, I'd say, mid to late morning, because he was working. We both had 2 brain lists, so we distributed those, and we're looking for last minute items. For example, we were still looking for my blue blocking sunglasses, right, that I used for the tennis volley back in 2015, and we failed to find them. So, I tested a couple other shades that Angelo had gotten, and it just didn't augment the view. So I didn't want to have a game day change that I wasn't prepared for. So that's part of preparation, is to try to control all the controllables, and having shades is a change, and therefore I didn't want that. We interacted by text back and forth, last minute operational details and otherwise. Also commuted down together. That's really important.
Actually, no, we didn't. No,
we didn't. Right. We wanted to.
We couldn't fit all the boxes into my car. So
yeah. So we basically spoke on the whole way there. We just open mic spoke on the whole way there. So it was an hour of getting ready, because at that point, the cars are packed. There's no more operational. So we're talking a little operational detail, but just being, alone together, if you will, in the cars, since we weren't actually in the car. So we wanted to simulate. Sorry, we got a little guest here.
Very good. Hello, guest.
Yeah. So, okay. And then I would say the power of routine. Look at all the elite athletes. Folks like Rafael Nadal come to mind, that they have a meticulous preparations, and that it's borderline superstitious. Even the University of Connecticut UConn basketball coach has sort of very ritualized superstitions. One could say that that it's just superstition, but the other could say that it's preparation, meaning if you do something over and over, whether it actually is a cause and effect or not. Rafael Nadal lining up his water bottles or not stepping on lines when he walks to the side, or those kinds of things really have nothing to do with performance, but they have to do with consistency. And if you are consistent in how you prepare, I think you are more confident than you can achieve what you're setting forth to do. Whereas if there are a lot of changes, or things are a bit imperfect, even though you don't need perfection to perform, the closer you are to perfection, and for me, it's operational readiness, making sure all the logistical details are in place and close to perfect as we can, then mentally you're in a better frame to perform.
Would you say that it turns to superstition when something in that routine isn't able to be done, and now everything's thrown off, and you let it impact you? Because I think there are plenty of athletes who are like, I didn't wear my blue socks today, I'm gonna play like crap, right? Rather than it's like, okay, you're putting on the blue socks because it's part of your routine, even though today, they're all dirty, I can't wear a pair, I'm still gonna go out there and give it my best effort, I'm still gonna go out there and perform. Right? Would you say that's the border of where it becomes superstition, is not really accepting the fact that, something may not be right in the routine?
Yeah, Angelo, I'd like you to tackle this because you have strong beliefs in this one.
Yeah. So a lot of athletes and even coaches get superstitions confused with routines. And they're similar but drastically different as far as performance. So a superstition controls you. You control your routine. So and she's become a good friend of mine, Olympic gold medalist Laura Wilkinson. We've talked about this one-on-one about the difference and that sort of thing. And she shared a story with me. I'm going to butcher it, but I'll share it anyways, that there was an Olympic gymnast who was favored to win gold. And she normally wears a pink hair tie to keep her hair in a ponytail. And the day of the gold medal match, the competition, she only had her white one. And she thought the entire routine, how could I forget my pink hair tie? How could I forget it? And she didn't get gold. And so that is a superstition, that the color of the hair tie, since you don't see it, it's irrelevant of what the color is. So now you're beholden to the superstition. Rafael Nadal, he lines up the bottles, in front of the line and that sort of thing. If I was his mental skills coach, would I tell him not to do that? No. What I would tell him is But when the bottles don't line up, what are you going to do? And that's the Elvis principle. If you could then handle that distraction, accept it, and still win gold and still perform well, then it's a routine. The second thing about superstitions and routines, and people get them confused, do you have control over the outcome? No. Did I have control that I was not going to miss? No, I didn't have full control over it. There's certain things beyond your control. If the ball cracks, whatever, there's a big distraction, the power goes out. But if you control the instances and circumstances right before and right after the performance, then you are tricking your mind into leading it on that you can control the performance, but you can't. So after a while, your mind doesn't know the difference. And so what it does is it performs the way that you saw yourself when you did your mental rehearsals. But here's the thing, for those athletes that don't mentally rehearse, that don't use imagery and all of your emotions to see success before it happens, then you won't succeed because you don't have that fallback. You don't have that mental impression of what success looks, smells, and feels like. And I really believe that. I'm living proof of that. And so that is why, Al, when you overheard me say, no, we're not going to practice, we are starting right now, is because I'm already ready. I've been ready. I've been ready since January. 8 months? I don't know. I've been ready. Why delay it any further? And then the second thing is, some people like Arnold Schwarzenegger and some others, they say don't have a plan B. And I tend to agree with that. Why? Because if you have a plan B, it means you're not 100% focused on plan A. Plan A, you can't be 95% focused and then leave 5% for plan B. So the way I handle plan B is, if it does not happen, and only then, what are you going to do? That at that moment you do it. God forbid there was a miss. I would probably tell my brother, let's use the restroom real quick, take a quick 1 minute mental break, and then get right back at it. As if it was the seamless same volley. Yes, we're going to have less now, but that's okay, whatever it is. But I didn't think about that at all. I removed the word mistake from my mental vocabulary. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that is. It didn't enter. And that's why when we had the preparation and people asked in the pre-speech, what if you miss and all of that, okay, what if I land on the moon? I mean, that's the question. It's the same thing for me. What if the spaceship doesn't get to Mars? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not there. It's not a thing. So, you don't put weight on it. You don't put focus on it. The more you focus on, if there's a miss, what are we going to do? How many times are we going to try? We have to start by midnight. Yes, those are all factual, but you can't let those enter your mind. So, going back to it, the difference between superstitions and routines, you control your routines, your superstitions control you.
So now, kind of leading into that, right? We're talking about routines here, talking about superstitions. You had a couple of curveballs thrown your way right before you're about to do the world record, right? And a big one for you was live stream was not working for the first hour. You're trying to navigate this for an hour. What is going through your head during this time period? Because you look like you were working hard to try and get the live stream going. I'm like, this poor guy just is trying to get ready for this world record, and he's running around trying to figure this out. What's going through your brain, and what are you navigating during that hour of trying to figure out this live stream?
Yeah, it's same thing happened for the tennis volley record 2015. Steve Rogers actually was in charge of the live stream. He had his equipment going. We were live streaming on Twitch, Save the Children's Twitch channel at the time. And basically it's in many in many ways, it was more stressful than the record, right? And Angelo was trying to offer, advice. How can I help, right? But the tone.
I'll just volley the ping pong ball over here by myself.
Yeah, so it's like I noticed he was up against the dink wall. He was practicing, I think, or whatever. So he was doing what he can. So, I know that kind of lines up with the purpose. Yes, we can set a record anywhere, but if no one's there to witness it, you're not sharing it. It's not a shared experience. It's not documented, so it's not official. You're not raising money. You're not inspiring people who couldn't be there to watch it remote. So for all those reasons, we just had to make sure that that the stream was working. And so, it's difficult. Another inside piece of information would be the playlist. So not only was the stream not working, so it looked to the stream team just about when we were about to go live. It looked as it was showing live, but it in Stream Deck and so on. But I went to my phone, like, it's not live. It's just not on YouTube. It's just not on any of the social networks. So Save the Children was streaming on YouTube, simulcasting on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok, and it was supposed to syndicate to Rossetti Brothers pickleball channels. Ended up not syndicating to my knowledge, or at least it didn't save in the timeline, either one of the two. But the mainstream did finally work, both in sort of the view and the site. And the second it might sound trivial, but we had been promoting the address rallyforcharity.org/watch, which had the embed code from the Save the Children YouTube stream. And so that was the last piece, but I was on my MacBook and Wi-Fi was really weak and the Ethernet cable wasn't working. So like all these operational details might seem trivial, but they're stressful. We got through them. So with a delayed start, but actually there was a big silver lining in the delayed start. There's two silver linings. One, we were able to have the team huddle, which appears on the live stream, where we huddled everyone and got everybody sort of aligned that this is a team effort, that it takes a village to set a world record, and teamwork makes the dream work, right? And the second was then, because the traffic was just so bad, we had key people that showed up, including media. And media were able to get the interviews in advance rather than having no first-person interviews and just arriving and trying to film the attempt. And so it ended up being a positive, even though it was delayed. But that's why when I was wanting to practice some more, all right, let's practice. And Angelo's like, no, we're going to start. That was the practice. So that's what I said on stream. I said, sorry, no more practice. The practice was the media interviews, and now we're going to do it. No, we did get some strategic practice play in right before the record. And one, the playlist was a problem. So the playlist was probably the single most important element.
Talk about how you have it set up.
Yeah, we'll do it. So basically, Apple playlist, 16 songs, exactly 60 minutes, the duration of the playlist. And based on all of our personal bests, by the way, I'm so proud we set a world record, but I'm even more proud that we set a personal best, and the personal best is a world record. So being an Olympic year, I had to say that. So 60 minutes exactly. Every song is curated, the drum tempo, the meaning of the song. Some of the slower songs have important lyrics. One has talks about leaving a legacy for your mom, is in one. High Hopes is the name of that song, and of course it has the word hope in it. Like, there's so many, starting off with Remember the Name, in this case the Rossetti Brothers, but Remember the Name, and it starts off and it's like a sports anthem, as you know. Great. And and then it ended, by the way. So on the stream, you and Eric were guessing, is it Eye the Tiger? What are they doing? Angelo's dancing. He's bouncing around right now. So your guys were close. Eye the Tiger was in there. But we made a strategic shift before the attempt. I put replay by Zendaya as the last song on purpose. When we heard her say replay, I have it on replay, we knew it's the reset of the playlist. So you're absolutely right. Normally it would have been Eye of the Tiger. We flipped it. And I thought it was brilliant. So as soon as replay hit, that's when we went into beast mode, because we knew one more song. On average, each song of the 16 was 4 minutes on average. But that song is a little less. It's like 3.5. So I knew for 3.5 minutes, if we sustained that epic pace, which turns out to be potentially, for example, we were at 83, 84 in practice. 84 was the magic number to break the record in 2 hours. According to the footage, we did it 2 hours and 45 seconds. So we were like right on plan. In fact, the 10-1 countdown literally starts, I think, at like close to 2 hours. There's only 45 seconds after that. Yeah. So it's very close. And that's the importance of the playlist. And we were having difficulty with the AirPods. It was bouncing in my pocket and skipping songs, skipping beats. It was a disaster in the warm-ups. So then I tried it with the phone on the court. Well, the Bluetooth wasn't strong enough. That wasn't working. So I put it back in my pocket. And that's why part of the reason I was a bit more immobilized than Angelo was I was trying to keep my left leg still so I wouldn't shuffle the podcast, the playlist.
Is this why you're talking about your right hip? Is this why you're talking about your right hip?
Yeah,
so
yeah, right hip.
My left hip, and then my right hip was the only one making the move. So it was causing like right hip damage or whatever, fatigue. It was just hysterical. No one really knows, but it worked. And the amazing thing is it worked. Like it didn't skip a beat for 2 hours, 2 revolutions of the playlist. And then we crushed it the last song. And that's how it went.
Well, I knew if I could keep the ball volleyed to you, that you wouldn't have to move your left hip. So my thing was to hit it so that you didn't have to move much, which I found was a little different than our practices. I mean, it was similar, but I felt like if I, and I described this to one of the reporters, I think, comparing it to competition, you don't worry about your opponents being ready or whatever. You hit the ball and you don't want them to be ready and you don't want them to have a shot in the sweet spot. Whereas here, you have to hit the ball solidly, 3 on point of contact, a solid point of contact, but you have to hit it in an area that is good for your partner. So I really felt like if Ettore was going to take the pre-rally burden of live streams and elements that I wasn't privy to or in control of, the least I could do was during the rally do 75% of the work. In other words, he hits the ball to me. I hit 50%, which is a clean shot, but I hit it to a spot that he does not have to move. So if I'm doing, and I mean, maybe it's not 75%, maybe it's more like 99%. I'm very modest, but so it's like if you hit the ball, maybe it's 51%. But I said if I could be a little bit better than just getting it back, but hit it to a certain spot, he would have a better chance of making that shot, and that would sustain us. So that for me took more mental effort and energy, but I was okay with that. But that was something that was important to me.
So really building on that, we found that you guys ran into all sorts of roadblocks right before this world record. Whether it was the live stream, whether it was the last second interviews, whether it was the no practice, which blew my mind. And I'll be honest with you, Angelo and I have talked about much of this, and I have applied it myself. But this is the first time that I got to see Angelo apply everything that we talk about real time. And I think that gave me a tremendous perspective because I watched him go no practice, go interview right beforehand, really the live stream not working, but he's still pacing around. If I'm being honest with you, he's still pacing around, and he was nothing but ready since he walked in the door since 3 months ago, the entire time. So for me, being able to see that was absolutely amazing. And then the other half was you just literally do it running around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to get everything set up, and then stepping in and doing a world record. So I think the combination of those two things, everything that I have been learning, I now feel like I'm just doubling down on, right? Because I have witnessed its success in real time. The second piece, though, that I want to get into is that did lead into all these distractions, did lead into those first 15, 20 minutes were a little bit shaky, right? They were a little bit rocky. There was a couple misses in there that were not the intent. The big intent that you probably heard me commentate was, ooh, that backhand was not planned at all, right? He had a backhand relatively early, I'll say within the first hour. When that did happen, you guys did a few things. One, you did a great job at recovering. But two, you had a communication style. I kind of heard what you were saying to each other, but not really. So talk us through how you planned for possibly having a mishit and what that communication was during it that allowed you to recover rapidly.
Yeah, we is interesting because it was, a little bit over 10,000 forehand volleys, and then there were 2 backhands. I thought there was only one early on, and they both were within the first hour, but there was a high backhand after that one, and Ed was right on that. And I guess I was so focused on getting it back, I didn't really know what kind of shot I hit. That was a dangerous one, though, because the high ball, it's hard to hit a high ball high. You don't want to hit it down. So, that was almost a tougher one. But in watching it on video again, I ended up hitting it up and he hit it up, and then we kind of regained ourselves. What we found in practices, Al, is talking is a distraction, because when you are talking, you're using mental energy to decide on what you want to say and then say it and then listen for the response. So there's a triple whammy. So talking was only going to be if necessary, which we had a word Ettore came up with called normalize, which was get back to our rhythm. So we use that. I use the word watch, which means be careful, but it was more one word and then let the rest happen. Because if you talk too much, you're going to talk through the implementation of what you're actually telling yourself or your partner to do. And it's like real life, whether it's tennis doubles or pickleball doubles or whatever. If you have a teammate, you don't want to overcoach them. You got to lead them. You got to guide them. And you got to trust that they're going to take the advice and do the best they can with it.
Yeah, because you guys had on both sides, you had a couple of recoveries. And I did hear you say watch if you said that was the word. And I don't know if I heard him say normalize, but Ed did say a few things to at least make him aware, like, hey, this was a little bit of a mishit, right? What on those first couple, so Ed, I remember you lunging for a couple. Is this just pure reactionary, pure instinctual? The adrenaline's going, you just react quickly to get the ball up and you set back in. Is there anything that's going through your brain, any thoughts? Now, when you settle back in of, okay, we can't do that again. Or like, okay, I got to watch out for the misses. Or are you not even having those thoughts during that time? Because I could see how for a lot of athletes that happens. Those can creep in, right? Happens to athletes all the time. Happens to myself, right? You have a couple misses, now you're thinking about it. But you guys dialed it back in quick. How did you do that?
Yeah, a couple of observations on that. So first of all, shout out to your commentating, by the way. Spot
Thank
on.
you.
During the backhand, his first backhand, you said, oh, Angelo hit a backhand. Big save there. Their plan was to hit all forehands, so they're a little bit off script right now. Like, you're exactly right. Yeah, our goal was to not hit any backhands. Number two, at first, and being a professional pickleball player yourself, you know this. And I learned this from Angelo. I'm very much into Roger Federer is my favorite tennis player. And so therefore in tennis, I've adapted the Roger Federer look at the point of contact even after the follow through. So my head lingers to the side a bit on the follow through. And I did the same thing in pickleball. The problem with that, especially in a volley rally, you don't have time to linger too much because you have to be ready for the next shot. And the way you're ready for the next shot is you look at the paddle direction of your partner, right? Or in a professional, when you compete with your opponents. That was part of the key to success, which is even though Angelo made the distinction of a competitive game and a cooperative game, we were trying to set each other up. But that's a difference between competing. We're trying to sustain a rally, not end it. But watching the paddle face is the same. So that principle of watching, it's physics. It comes down to physics and gravity. Gravity was one of the secrets of the success. I realized there's a certain pace with which you couldn't get under. If you're hitting a plastic ball 15 feet over a certain trajectory with no wind, it's gonna fall. So you put it up there and you let gravity take over. So that was one of the things for me that I thought about. The other was, and this is a distinction, the first hour, I was more focused on his paddle direction, and that's how I anticipated miss hits. And there weren't many by him, but there were a couple. And that was one, visual and auditory responsiveness. Visual was the direction of the paddle and where on he was hitting it. And auditory, the sound that it made, you could hear the miss hit. And therefore you knew if it's going to be miss hit, it's going to be low, bend down. So that was for the first hour. But what I found interesting during the second hour, when we fell back into the zone and into flow state, was two insights to share. One, especially during the speed up last song, there was no more parachute. There was no plan B. Because we didn't know with certainty we had crossed it. You guys knew. We didn't know. But based on all of our math, based on the playlist, and it was exactly what you said on stream, where you said, I think at this point, they're speeding it up because they want to get as many reps in as possible. You're absolutely right. But it wasn't to pad the record. It was to get to the record. We didn't know we were there. I certainly didn't. And so therefore, I'm like, okay. So I went in with two words for as far as performance. Patience and flexibility. Those were my two words for performance. Patience was just like our tennis 14-hour, 31-minute record. If we put in the time, it is just math. It's like a jail sentence. You put in the time, you'll be let free. We put in the time for 2 hours. It was a jail sentence, and I knew once we got to 120 minutes, in other words, 2 playlist repetitions, replays, right, to quote Zendaya, then I knew we would have the record. It was math. And the second was flexibility. You got to be patient to put in the time, but you got to be flexible to change the plan and the stroke if you needed to. If you were too rigid and you're not a flexible person, you wouldn't make those lunges properly and you would miss.
So that was super cool and also inspirational for me to see. Building on the fact of everything we talk about, you guys did have some highs and lows to that first hour, but then you absolutely dialed it in. And what you described, you saw beast mode kick in this world record. You 110% did. I'll say after first 45 minutes to an hour, there was that second hour where it was just bang, 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 bang. And you could watch it on film. And neither of you really moved maybe of a couple inches back and forth. So that flow state that you did reach, what does that feel like? What does that look like? Because you're not thinking about much, right? In that time, you are just bang, 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 bang. Describe what that flow state is like during that world record, because I think every athlete can relate to it, but it's always good to hear what other people are experiencing and seeing when in it.
I think for me, the true flow state, I never felt secure as far as one of the montages we had was respect the record. And it's a world record for a reason. No one has done it. No one may never do it. And so I had respect for the record, which means I didn't take making a shot for granted. So I mentally reset. And it's fascinating, Al, and I didn't tell you this, but I coach the 3-2-1 method that I developed, about 3 being optimal, because the higher the number, the better. It's easy as 3-2-1, not 1-2-3, because in pickleball, the higher number wins. So it's, okay, 3 is the center of the paddle. But when in practice, I would say 3, 3, 3 under my breath or in my mind, I wasn't in sync with it. And then what I realized was, for years, I've focused on hitting the sweet spot 3. I no longer need to make that so significant. It's happening subconsciously. So I said to myself, I have to accept that my mind already knows what a 3 is. I no longer need to say 3 in my mind. It's taking me from subconscious performance to conscious performance. I don't want it to be conscious performance. And so the actual 1 worked better from not from a sweet spot, from I need to make 1 shot. That is it. I can't make more than 1 successful shot. And as a byproduct of that, it was that I need a 3 on point of contact. I didn't need to focus on the 3 on point of contact, if that makes any sense. And I know we're going deep into flow state, but you have to tap into your subconscious of what you know. And I said to myself, I know how to hit a volley. I've done this. So I just need to do 1. And then I need to do 1 more. And then I need to do 1 more. And I need to do 5,000 more, but 1 at a time. And what I realized is there is no mental shortcut. I'm happy to report that I focused on hitting over 5,000 volleys 1 at a time. That's it, 1 at a time. There's no shortcut to it. And so that for me was big. And then the other, I did look at paddle angle, but I also looked at paddle angle and had an image of what the ball path would be like. So I could put my paddle where it was going to go. And if you look, I had very little, if any, backswing, because I said, I want my volley to be better after this. I don't want to become a worse player. So, the less backswing you can have, the less prep, the better. So I was really out in front. But you had to hit each one. What I recognized during practices during the week and also during the rally is that it's energy return. We've talked about this a little, Al, energy return. So it's a flat, firm paddle, a surface, and it's a hard ball, hard plastic. The faster that you hit the ball, the more energy it has, the less that your partner has to push the ball. But if I see a ball coming in the same exact location, but slower, I have to do more with it or it's not going to get there. And so I think for me, that was probably one of the most difficult things from a performance standpoint, was recognizing not just the placement of the ball, but the speed of the incoming ball. And when did I have to push more and push less? And then finally, and then I'll let you talk about the flow state, this was not fully planned. I said maybe we could set, another world record of the fastest minute, right? But that wasn't fully scripted or planned. All of a sudden, when we were at that replay in the playlist, Ettore just started to take off like he wanted to win the point. And I remember that from the national championships at where you edged me out for the state, but yes, I won the nationals. But anyways, it was the same beast. It was like, whoa, he doesn't want to body bag me like maybe Zane or had suggested, but I was shocked. I was like, what is going on? He started to just lock in and go faster. And so I'm like, either I can go slower, right, and absorb, or I'm going to match it. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to match it. Boom, 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 boom. And that's where we had over 104 per minute, averaging between 100 and 104 was the top in my unofficial guesstimates and estimates. But that right there, it brought the joy and the funness. And you mentioned the word euphoric. It definitely was. And I'm even humbled that you would discover that word, because I knew you were right there with us, because the fact that you used that word was the perfect word in so many ways. And there it's like, we've done this. We're going to do this. It is right here. And the irony of this whole darn thing, the reason why we planned the charity event 12 to 4 was our first practice was going to be 3 hours and 40 minutes. And so I rounded it up to 4. And so, I'm like, we're going to need 4 hours. And then we were closer to the non-volley zone line than ever in the real day, that we were a faster pace than we've ever done. We were in uncharted territory. But again, it's accepting that, saying, well, adrenaline and excitement is at an all-time high right now, and you're going to have to deal with it. And so I just was like, okay, I'm going to match his pace. And so when we did that last 3 minutes, I can't remember exactly how long. I think it was about 2.5 maybe. That was amazing until his right hip started to give out. Then I knew, he was okay. I was like, I was going to be clay there or water. I was going to be like, well, if he wants to keep going, we can keep going, but I'm good if he's good, and he was good.
I think he roared out a "let's go" in the middle of that quick volley. I remember it starting and at just being like, "Let's go," and then back at it. So pure adrenaline. But yeah, talk to us about what that flow state was like for you on your end. Was everything blocked out? Like, were you locked in, couldn't see anybody? Where they talk about flow state, it's basically these side blinders that are on. What was it like for you?
I think to use cinema, it was like The Matrix when Keanu Reeves found his flow state and was defending the bullets. Superhuman speed in a calm, looking like no effort. People have commented since the record, that looked easy. Wow, you guys were it looks easy because it's so difficult, right? Like, it's so easy to use an iPhone, but with the technology behind making it so easy is so complicated. So the beauty is in the simplicity, but behind the scenes, the complexity. And I felt so there's two martial arts that come to mind. One, The Matrix, and there's two, I quoted the late Bruce Lee about be like water, my friend. That was going to be one of my mantras. And let's say it's 40,000 thoughts an hour, as Angelo said in the post, a minute, as he said in the post record interview. Another visual metaphor is I had an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other. The devil was having doubt, having fear, negative thoughts, being distracted by the journalist who was behind me and went in the area that he shouldn't have. I was aware of that, but then I had to dismiss it with the positivity on the right shoulder. And the way I got through that is I can stand here longer than that journalist can film over there. And I was right, by the way. And so, I mean, he did move around and stayed the whole time. So to his credit, but not in one place. Second, Joe Fernandez mentioned a ball was going to roll onto our court from rec, and he sprinted to get it. I saw that in the left corner of my eye. And then Elvis Principal dismissed it, accepted it, didn't dwell on it, wasn't negative by it. And then on the right side, and folks wearing fluorescent yellow, and not just the counters, but others, like I saw that in the corner of my eye. I saw people entering in. I saw the runners who were going to get the count and then go back. But I accepted those peripheral distractions. So that was one. It's so hard to free your mind. It is so hard. It might have been David Blaine, the illusionist and endurance artist, but it may not have been. It might have been someone else. Someone tried, or maybe it was even Zorano Kelly, actually. Zorano Kelly. So you remember Zorano. Zorano, inspirational coach, motivator, author, so forth. And Angelo can tell you more about him. But in short, he tried to set a record or do an endurance event of not having a thought in like a day or a long period of time. And his feedback was he miserably failed. So trying to not have a thought is so difficult, but that is flow state. Being in a state of subconsciousness where you are not thinking. And that is the hardest part. But once you achieve it, and by the way, if you try to achieve flow state, you won't. You have to fall into it, right? And you have to not focus on it. And then the other thing would be, then what was the manifestation of that? The manifestation of that was I was no longer focused on my paddle face. I was no longer focused on his paddle face. It felt like I was hitting from my right hand to my left hand, and I was doing this. We were one. So when Nicole said they're locked in, that's exactly right. We were locked into one unit. It was like having a pass with yourself. Mm-hmm. And therefore, my second keyword, flexibility, took over. There was a near miss in the speed ups that was really short, and it was an off-center hit in the visual and auditory awareness, but it was way too fast to see the point of contact anymore. So you had to take that principle and you had to rise up to a new level. What's the new level? Be ready for everything. Be Keanu Reeves for any bullet, no matter what direction it came from. I was going to get it back. It didn't matter anymore. And for me, that was flow state. That in a calm manner, simply getting the miss hit and continuing on and not dwelling on it, that was flow state.
And it sounds like what really employed that was having flexibility there and not being so rigid in your approach at all. And I think that is a key thing to take away from that. But now getting through all this, we've achieved flow state. We now have a sneaky second world record at the end of it. We're firing balls back and forth. I was like, what is going on? Steve Rogers looks at me across the way, gives me these big bald eyes. It's like, oh my God. And he just starts clicking like this because he had no idea that it was going to happen. Right. But then he gave me the nod when you guys did break it. And that's when the euphoria really kicked in, which was just super, super cool. But at the end, you guys had this weird, I'll say cool to celebration that nobody was expecting, right? What employed you to do this? I mean, you showed off your athleticism during this point, which I didn't really know that you had that balance and coordination beyond the world record there. So tell us what employed you to do that cool celebration right at the end.
All right, two things. One, that we knew because ESPN had reached out in advance for consideration SportsCenter top 10, and that is a dream, and it still is. We were very logical about it, saying, though hitting more than 2,000 volleys consecutively in pickleball is really difficult, it's not entertaining in a 10-second sport highlight. Well, what could we capture in 10 seconds that could make SportsCenter top 10? So we took one of the more fancy trick shots in pickleball, a front-facing tweener, off a volley, no less, by the way.
Yeah.
People don't realize that tweeners are hit off a bounce. You can time it. You can wait for gravity. You can wait for the fall, wait for the second bounce, and hit it. Hitting a tweener after 2 hours of rapid fire between the legs when you're fatigued, your hips are giving out, and not letting the ball bounce and getting it over the net so that Angelo could catch it. The amount of skill required there is off the charts. I think it's SportsCenter top 10 worthy. And
there's your lobby for SportsCenter.
Get it out there because we still are hoping to achieve that dream, but on the bucket list. So that was number one. It was SportsCenter. It's like a little kid's dream. Hey, I want to be in the Guinness World Record book. Hey, I want to be on SportsCenter top 10. Those little childhood dreams, you still hold on to in your adulthood. You're still an inner child. And so that was one reason. The other, and Angelo can vouch for this, I'm more for the show. He's more for the dough, right? Drive for show, puck for dough. That's also our tennis. Like he's, I got all the fancy shots. He's got all the medals. So it's sort of like, right? So every time I would do open rec play, I would report back to him my tweener ratio. So I go, hey, bro, I was 1 for 1 on tweeners today. I was 2 for 5. I was 2 for 4, 50%, not bad. Like literally. So every time I do rec play, I try to do a tweener and not to insult anyone I'm playing with. Unless you practice it, you won't get good at it. So I was been practicing the tweener. Now, not off a volley, not after 2 hours, but nevertheless a tweener. Now, it was a reverse tweener, not a front facing. So that was different. But for your pickleball enthusiasts out there, it was for those two reasons that the tweener is, look at Ashlon, Christian Ashlon, right? Tweener King is his handle. That's his name, Tweener King. So even in tennis, he was hitting tweeners and a bit of a showman. So those are the two reasons to make a chance of making ESPN SportsCenter top 10. And I'm known for more flash anyway. And so he did the perfect setup. 10 to 1, then 0. We said count down from 10 to 0. 10 is, the pickleball rally starts in 0 and ends in 0. Begins with love, ends in love, and it did. And it was 0. So then notice he counted out 0, and then he hit it in a perfect setup for me. And then I tweened it, and he caught it, and then the rest is history.
It was an absolutely perfect tweener. I will also lobby or sign a petition for that to be in the SportsCenter top 10 because it was perfectly executed. And off the volley was ridiculous. And I will tell you, if you go and watch the video, the placement for it, where Angelo just kind of had to step into it with the forehand, was unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I will tell you, I cannot do that. I would miss that so many times. And the fact that it was done after 2 hours volleying over 10,000 pickleballs is actually pretty insane and highly impressive. So SportsCenter, when I send this on over to you, you better take a look at it. I actually have a few contacts there that I might reach out to and be like, hey, I got a pretty good highlight for you to put on the top 10, see what we could do with it. But the reason I wanted to bring that up is because it was unexpected. And I think it was such a great, I'll say, encapsulation of the world record as a whole, right? Because you guys went from distractions to, recovery to beast mode to having so much fun and enjoyment when you completed this world record, right? So it wasn't just that it was all serious. There was high amount of purpose, but you also just brought so much fun and joy to such what could be a highly intense event, right? Highly intense. But that fun that you guys brought at the end there was awesome. Absolutely awesome. I would employ, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, yes, I understand that they did the same thing back and forth for 10,000 volleys, right? But if you don't want to watch the whole thing, I would employ you at least to watch the last 5 to 10 minutes. Because not only do you have the rapid fire pace, you have getting fired up with a couple of let's goes in there. And you also have the fact of the new and improved Tweener King 2.0 here live on the podcast that does tweeners out of the air, not off the bounce. So at Christian Alshon, you have a new Tweener King in town. Be ready. His name is Ettore Rossetti. All right. Now moving on, record has been completed. You guys, as well as I will tell you, everybody there, it gets hit with a wave of emotion. And this is where I use the word euphoric because so I'm a highly empathetic and emotional person as it is, but I was slapped in the chest where I immediately had tears coming to my eyes. You heard the raspiness in my voice when I was commentating. It hit me like a wave. And it probably hit you guys 10 times as hard as you did complete that, especially with the purpose of what you were doing it for. Beyond Save the Children was also for your mother, right? I know it's going to be tough, but talk us through what that feeling was like. What happened there? Because you saw it in you, the raw emotion, the purpose, all the work that was put into this. And then you guys just really embraced and seemed so grateful for what occurred. So those last, I'll say, 2 minutes before you actually gave your speech, what did that feel like? That joy that was really held in you both.
Well, we had purposely paper clipped pictures of our mom's high school photo on each side of the net, on the top of the net. And, you know, that was a visual reminder that she was there with us. So whenever I had moments of concern or stress, I would glance at her. And then you can't really describe. A lot of people say you can't describe. It's difficult to describe or put into words because the words will never, fully fulfill what the purpose is. Yeah. But so the reason why I was so excited immediately when I jumped around was that I was a little bit against the Tweener King 2.0 thing that Ettore came up with like 48 hours before the world record. I'm thinking to myself, like that's the last thing on my mind.
By the way, can I jump in? I know we're getting to the sentimental part, but thing, right? I had one of the keys to our failure in 2015 is we were preparing for plan Bs, which Angelo said you have to have no parachute. If you are so committed to something and you do not have a backup plan, that means you're 100% immersed. If you're only 99%, there's a 1% chance of failure there. So we had practiced, okay, the tennis volley, if I get fatigued or too close to the net, let it bounce and take it off the bounce. Our fatal flaw was we prepared for plan B, but we prepared for plan B not after 5.5 hours of a tennis volley, which is what the reality was. So we actually, it caused the miss in 2015 because I just triggered into, all right, well, we practice this. I feel too close to the net. I'm going to let it bounce. And then after 5.5 hours of being flow state and subconscious, I hit the same technique and it went right into the net. So learning from that failure, this time I said, I'm going to practice it after our attempts. And we did so. I'm 3 for 3 now on tweener volleys at the end of rally. But the others weren't 2 hours, but one was a full hour. And then we pulled it off the countdown. So I knew it was possible because we did it. So that gives you hope. When you achieve something, then you just say, you trick your mind saying, then we can do it again, no matter how different. So I must say, that was a huge lesson, a 10-year lesson learned from the tennis volley miss to this success at the end was we practiced the specialty shot in a much more realistic setting than contrived and unrealistic. Back to Angelo.
Yeah, it was just prepping a little bit 48 hours before with the whole tweener thing. And then it's, the excitement. So I wasn't excited that we did it for Mom. I was peaceful. The peaceful part was for my mom. the excited part was that we did something, we set the record. And so the thing that made me excited was that we did the record, we pulled off the countdown, he pulled off the tweener, and I caught the ball because I know from the 2021 record, my left hand was double the size of my right because it was swollen because the blood just pools there when you're not moving your left arm. So I knew catching the ball was going to be a little difficult after 2 hours, but I said to myself, it wasn't 6 hours, it was 2. So I think I'm going to be okay. And then plus I wanted to catch it behind the non-volley zone line. Even though the catch doesn't count as a shot, I just had these little minor challenges for myself.
You did like a little toe step.
Yeah, a little toe step. Yeah. And then
like a sideline catch.
Yeah, like Deion Sanders catching the ball on the sidelines, you know?
Exactly.
And then toe stepping into the end zone. So we had all the little things, and that was the excitement. Then the immediate rush of emotion of that sadness that my mom wasn't going to come back, even though we honored her legacy. And that was, tough for me. It kind of, since January for 7.5 months, I mentally and emotionally prepared for the fact that this day would come and go and we would honor her legacy. And I didn't know what it would feel like. And I think I had this fallacy that she would be back with us. And so it's also that heartbreak to know she's still gone.
But I think me, as well as you, as well as Et, surely felt her presence there. I don't think I would have been hit with the wave of emotion that I did if she wasn't. And I think every single person in that room truly felt that, which was just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And now there's a photo, and this photo is going to be iconic. I know it's new, but I'm telling you, this is going to be iconic. There's one of you, both of you, right? Hugging each other. Save the Children is in the background. You're over the net. You could see the picture of your mother hanging on the court. I don't know who part of the media took that photo, but tremendous photo, right? That moment when you guys are hugging each other over the net, you're sitting there, you're joyful. You probably don't have many words to even describe it. How are you feeling during that time?
Yeah, so I think to back up just a little to give you the full context.
Yeah.
Euphoria, or like a fun euphoria of, I wasn't completely euphoric. So by the way, when I said, let's go, and then later on I said, come on, right? You heard those. And yes, I was trying to win the point, like kind of, but in a good way. In other words, raising the bar, and he answered the call. Yeah. And, and you look at the videotape closely the last 3 minutes. First, I'm the one speeding up, and he's bouncing back, and then he raises up, and then actually his is more, and mine's a rebound, right? So it's like it was a little, and you use the word yin and yang during your broadcast. It's exactly what it was. Equal magnets repel, but if they're complementary, they attract, and they're in a really strong bond. And that's what I felt like we had when we were locked in, to use Nicole's words. And we were locked in like magnets. And then the tweener was successful, and that was the peak of the euphoria. Angelo legitimately jumping after 2 hours. I couldn't believe he could get that high. Like, it was amazing, like him jumping of that, celebrating, catching with his left hand. By the way, no trivial feat. After 2 hours, your arm immobilized, and catching it is a very high level of difficulty. Not quite as high as the tweener, but very high. And, so, and we did the victory. Yeah. This is the victory symbol.
Yeah.
The Muhammad Ali, this is the sports victory symbol. Why do human beings raise their arms over their head with clenched fists? Like, what is that? It is called it looks like a V. It's a victory symbol, right? It's human nature. I don't know what it is. And we did that. But then when we made eye contact and I saw the picture of my mom and I realized the magnitude of the moment, it was very short-lived. It turned into it turned into sadness, but a good sadness, like a well, it turned into crying. Laughter turned into crying. I like to say that the human emotions of crying and laughter. You know how people say they laugh until they cry, until tears come down, and laughter oftentimes sounds like crying and vice versa. So at first we were euphoric and I was like laughing and then it turned into crying. And it's okay. Those are sister emotions. They're siblings like we are. And those emotions were on full display for everyone to see, both present and on the live stream, and memorialized now in footage. And that's why I put the hat over my eyes, because Angelo had the benefit of shades. I didn't. So it's such a personal moment there. I didn't want to see people seeing me so upset. So I kind of did that and did this was the instinct, and he did the same. And then when by the time I got to the net for the hug embrace, which was planned, like all of our records, the level of emotion was similar to our very first tennis record in 2008, 14 hours, 31 minutes. And at the end of that, after the hug, I broke down emotionally because I was bottling it up and holding it and harboring it. And there, our mom and dad were in the window watching the whole time, but we had our children in our hearts. And for me, Save the Children, it was for child mortality. Every single child, 25,000 children every day die of largely preventable, treatable causes. So I thought to myself, I vicariously have lived the mission of Save the Children now for 20 years. My kids are 19 and 21. So in the 2008 tennis record, I said one ball, every shot is a child's life. What if it were my child's life? What if I missed the shot and my child would not survive? And I would not recommend that for mental training for people. But that's what I used in 2008 to get me through it. So then I broke down emotionally afterwards because it was achieved and my kids survived and they were alive. And I, let it all out. Well, this time, even though my kids certainly were in my heart, it was about mom. And it was like,
yeah, it's tough.
It is. I mean, you could see it, right?
Yeah.
When you get weak in the knees, and I think that was something that was very visible. But the reason that I wanted to emphasize that was because of how much I felt it, and I know that everybody else felt it there.
Yeah, so it was like
yeah, for me it reminded me of, it took me back to the place of her eulogy 2 years ago, where we had less than 24 hours to prepare for her funeral. And that was it reminded me of that.
Yeah, so in our last hours, we would be taking her pulse in the special device.
Yeah.
And the sound of the pickleball, and the heartbeat are similar in pace.
I never actually thought of that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Listen, take your time. This is not.
I just wanted that beat to continue.
Yep.
And I think the reason that I ask these type of questions is because it just shows how much purpose that you both operate with, why you're doing what you're doing and why you've set out to accomplish such a crazy feat, right? I think that's why, although it's not easy to talk about, right? Because it does hit you in the chest like a wave. It just shows the importance to it. It shows the purpose behind it. And if more athletes, more people can operate from that state, the power that they would feel to actually accomplish these impossible, in quote, things is incredible. And
the late Dr. Dwyer, Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, author, spiritualist, and he talks about first you think something, right? And then you do something, and then you become something. The performance was a state of doing, and achieving it was a state of being. We have become record holders. And that is sort of a spiritual sense. You're absolutely right. It's Angel's, the notion of mind over matter. It's the spirituality. It's being seen, and and it's not about us. You're right. The power of purpose. It is about having a purpose that is, beyond yourselves, selfless. But it's also about inspiring people to find their flow state in life and in sport, whatever that means. Finding it is euphoric. It is joy. It is. I now don't have a bad day anymore. Something bad happens, and then I think about that moment, and I think about it's just I'm so joyful. I'm positive. Positivity spreads. It can lift us out of tough situations, like in Angelo's post-event speech. I think, so even I'm tearful now. The rally continues. That's Angelo caught the ball.
Yeah, and
our mom's heart is still beating somewhere, like the pace of a pickleball rally.
Yeah,
absolutely, and I think that all three of us here, and like I said, everybody in that room truly knows that from being at that event. But I will tell you that the impact of the world record is not over, right? We still have plenty of things that are being done in order to donate as much as we can possible to save the children. So you want to talk to us about what still people can do in order to support this cause and this world record and really still make an impact, right?
Yeah, and can you talk about also the silent auction items, the autographed items, the celebrity type items? I know that's only good to midnight on Saturday, but
yes, for those who still want the support, the rally continues for the children who are in food insecurity around the world. And the way you can help is you can go to rallyforcharity.org/donate. There you can make a pledge to donate now that we did our part. Or there are two other ways you can support us financially, support Save the Children, I should say. 100% of the donations go directly to Save the Children. First one is there's a silent auction of sports memorabilia. That auction ends midnight this Saturday, so midnight tomorrow. So go to rallyforcharity.org/donate. You'll see a link to the auction. That's number one. As far as the terms of the auction, 25% of the starting bid goes to Save the Children if that starting bid becomes the winning bid, and anything higher than the starting bid, 100% of that incremental difference goes to Save the Children. Number two, we have custom paddles, which we use during the attempts. The Save the Children collection. It is available at Engage Pickleball, but you can get those at again, rallyforcharity.org/donate and look for the link to Engage Pickleball. It's a private link, so it's difficult to find publicly. So just go there, make a purchase, limited edition, limited time only. There, 50% of the retail purchase price goes directly to Save the Children. So approximate pricing for the Pursuit Pro, the high end, the retail purchase price is about $260, and then you have the Encore EX, and the retail purchase price there is about $150, and then you have the Trident. The retail purchase price there is about $90. So they're super cool. They're commemorative, limited edition. They're also signature paddles. So we're super proud of them, and they're for a good purpose. So the rally continues, the fundraising continues. Spread the word, and thank you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest here. I have a bunch of red tickets in my bag downstairs, and I'm kind of waiting to know when I possibly won a paddle. When am I gonna know when one of those paddles is going to be in my room for years to come?
So you will know. We are announcing the winners publicly. We'll put them on the website. So for full transparency, tomorrow. It'll either be likely by noon tomorrow. By noon Eastern time tomorrow, we'll publish the names. We'll send it on email to everyone, yourself included, who participated. So thank you for your support. It is a random chance of winning based on number of entrants. They'll be randomly drawn. And at minimum,
I might have to make a few phone calls.
The minimum, or buy more tickets. No. So at minimum, these three, one of each of the designs will be raffled off, and a couple of pairs of special sunglasses, pickleball sunglasses, will be raffled off. Those are the prizes. We may, put.
Do I get to buy the ones that Angelo actually wore, or what? Those things were sweet.
Yeah, all that stuff we're gonna potentially donate
to the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
I love that.
Anyway, thank you guys. I've got two more to drop, but I just want to thank you for your time, and Alec, thank you for your support. You did an amazing job of commentating, of participating, of your generosity of donating. I hope you win. And Angelo, of course, couldn't have done it without you, bro. It's amazing. And we still got a lot of work. We're gathering all the evidence, all the affidavits, the video footage, the photo footage, the timestamps, and packaging it up, gonna mail it all in, all the different camera angles, so it can be verified. And then we should know soon, perhaps as soon as 5 more business days, perhaps. And then the certificate comes thereafter, and I've got a blank on the wall for it.
I was going to ask. I see that.
Number 4 going right there, my friend.
Right there.
Hook there as well. The hook is ready to go. So visualization, my friends.
Hell yeah.
You're mental coaches. You got to visualize your dreams in order for them.
How long have you had that blank space on the wall?
So this has been my placeholder, Alec. I've got this Bitcoin poster I got from Ghana, Africa. This has been my placeholder for months, since last December. So since last December.
That's really cool.
See, look,
when you were over there, was that made there?
Yeah.
That's actually
hand done. Lightning bolt, Bitcoin. And if you go like this, it looks like Michelangelo's, right?
I see that. Yeah.
So Bitcoin. Anyway, you can donate Bitcoin. Speaking of Bitcoin, you can donate Bitcoin at rallyforcharity.org/donate. Thank you.
And can't they text pickleball to 707070? That's probably the easiest way to donate. Text us pickleball, the word pickleball, to 707070. We own that word, so that's cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today and sharing your experience with the world record. Obviously, you were a key component of that. So thank you for that today.
My pleasure.
So everything can be found at rallyforcharity.org /donate, I believe.
Yep.
Go there. Pretty much any single transaction pledge is going to help us so kindly do. And even they're going to cover transaction fee costs. So for us, every dollar that you donate is going to be going on over to Save the Children. But thank you for today, Ange. Once again, I will thank you as well for sharing just an amazing experience with me. Like I thanked Ed as well. And it's something that is going to sit with me forever, especially with everything that we talk about, everything that we teach, being able to see that real time. I will tell you that my summary of it and how I've been applying on the court is I think now of the world record as a way for me to say no excuses.
Yeah.
I think, and I've been practicing, I will say since then, with that mentality, and it has impacted me heavily. Because I think going into any time I step out there, witnessing you do that real time and really hold yourself to not a single excuse, and everything that was thrown your way was not an obstacle that was going to stop you from doing what you were sought out to do. There's no reason that I should have any excuse as well. And I think that has inspired many to do the same thing.
It's awesome.
So thank you.